welcome back. And we're moving into our first segment for this morning, where we have our final introductory interviews with the candidates aspiring for the upcoming municipal elections. This morning, we're moving into our home base, Belize City. And I do want to say, before we start the conversation, that the United Democratic Party was invited to participate in our introductory interview session. And they had indicated that they would participate, but a few days before we got started, they withdrew. So we are proceeding with those who have confirmed. And so this morning, we have with us the People's United Party candidate, mayoral candidate, and 2 councillor candidates as well. We have Bernard Wagner, who is hoping to become the new mayor of Belize City. And we have 2 councillor candidates, Dr. Candice Pitts and Oscar Arnold. Good morning and welcome.
Good morning, guys.
Okay, so the first question is obviously, let me ask you how you feel the campaign has been going so far.
Thanks again, Marlene, for having us. My first time actually on the Wake Up, Open Your Eyes show. It's certainly a pleasure to be here, and my team here is ecstatic to be here also. Yeah. But on the campaign trail, it has been gathering momentum as we go about the business. We started actually in October of last year, and we have been putting in some serious work on the campaign trail. People want to see you at their doors. Despite the social media, TV, people still want to see you at their door. They still want to meet the candidates, still want to meet their mayoral hopefuls. And I think that we have been great in gathering momentum in a slow format. We didn't want to peak too early. And as we are winding down the last 6 days, we have seen this enthusiasm within the divisions across the city. In divisions, we have never had any base per se. We have seen people in the Queen Square division, people in the Mesopotamia division, pushing us forward, telling us they want change, and we are there with them.
Okay. Now, it's also an opportunity for people to meet you and learn about who you are and your background, and that's part of what we want to get into. And I ask this question with the most genuine interest, because I always wonder what prompts people to enter into politics, especially when you have established careers and you can contribute in other ways. So tell me, what made you make this decision?
Again, it came right back to living in the city, and you have to care about the city, obviously. I have always been a city boy, born and bred in the Port Loyola area, ATB, Niels Penn Road. My story has been well documented. My mom sold bread and buns. My father, Joseph Wagner, composer / furniture maker, was a follower of George Price. And so I came up very poor, struggling family. The only thing I always tell the voters when I go on the campaign trail is that we had it hard back then, but not as hard as it is now. And I always wonder why we have regress rather than progress. And I still drop my kids off to school in the mornings, and I have an 11-year-old son, a 10-year-old son, and I'm wondering with the crime, with the impacts of not having job opportunities, the social impacts happening in the city. I said I could have stand on the outside, certainly stand on the outside, and just watch it and go on the social media and talk, but I felt that I needed to make some contribution and get inside and then be able to make changes as I see it fit and which benefits the city residents.
And for the councillor candidates?
Sure, I'll have Candice go first.
Ladies first, of course.
That's fine.
Like Mr. Wagner, I was born and raised in the Port Loyola constituency. I currently live in Port still. My formal education began when I was 4 years old, but I always tell people that my informal education enriched my formal education, and I would say that my informal education became even more meaningful when I started to sell Johnny cakes. You know, as a child in Port, I became I became aware of the living conditions of the residents of Port when I used to walk on their London bridges and when I was welcomed into their homes or whenever we struck up a conversation on random topics, right? I became aware of the social, cultural, and political influences of this area. And my academic instructions began at Port Loyola Preschool and then St. John Vianney Primary School, both schools in the same constituency. Then I transitioned to Palote High School and then St. John's Junior College, where I received the basketball scholarship to attend Albany State University, and then another scholarship to attend the Ohio State University, and finally a scholarship to do my doctorate at Howard University. Worked in the States briefly, and then returned to Belize City, decided to live right back in Port. And I think that that decision became instrumental in me entering in electoral politics. I realized that the residents, many of the residents continue to live the same way that they were living when I was walking on their London bridges as a child. And I know that holding a political office is not the only way in which you can effect changes, but I want to say it's one of the quickest ways in which you can effect changes, right? You get to sit around the table with the policymakers and the decision makers, and so you're better able to voice those concerns and to ensure that that we represent the people who elect us and who we have committed ourselves to serve. So that is primarily one of the reasons why I decided to enter politics. And of course, the second reason is that I also realized that women are highly underrepresented at the governmental level of our country and in politics in general. And so I used to advocate for women to enter the political arena, and I decided myself to jump in and to join them.
Oscar.
All right, good. For me, I grew up in a different Belize. I have had extensive background, exposure in sports. And I used to grow up playing football at Yabra Field, and in the afternoon stop by the youth hostel, what we knew as the youth hostel, and play basketball around Berger Field football. And just had a free flow, free movement on the entire south side. As I got older and as I progressed, I realized that a lot of our city youths didn't have that same luxury that I have. Some of them can't come off the blocks that they grew up on. I also found myself in a circle of friends that I operate in. I kept complaining and I kept saying, you know, this is wrong and we could do this differently. And so one day one of my friends says, well, what are you going to do about it? And that was when I realized that I have served my country as far as my sporting career went, as an athlete, as a coach, as a trainer. I've worked with young people. I've seen young people develop and become great national team athletes. But there was something else missing. There was another contribution that can be made. And I think that that is what has drawn me more. The idea of trying to make Belize a better place than I met it is what has drawn me to the political arena.
Now, the Belize City is no walk in the park.
Sure.
This municipal elections is a Watergate. Now, looking at the qualifications that the candidates have, on set today we have 2 former bankers and a doctor. But the fight in Belize City seems to be in the impoverished areas. Port Loyola, normally a margin. Collet, normally a poor area, normally a margin. Mesopotamia, huge margin. Queen Square, huge margin. How do you feel about being able to connect with, because yes, you're from these areas, but life has been a little bit better to you in terms of your work than it has been to the people who still suffer in these areas. How are you able to connect, given the divide between your current qualifications, your success, and what exists on the ground?
It's been an easy connect as far as I am concerned, because I was just one opportunity away, one less opportunity than being one of those people on the south side right now. And so when I approach it from that angle, we've been on the ground since last October trying to make that connection, make that relationship so that people understand that we are just like them. Candice got her opportunity. I had a dad who used to work 3 months out of the home and 2 weeks in the home. So I was raised by a single mother. But she was no picnic, and she made sure that we had what we needed, not what we wanted, and made sure that you go to school and you stay in school, because she understood the importance of an education. So I keep telling people that I was one opportunity away from just being pretty much another statistics on the south side. And the difference between someone making it and someone not making it is just an opportunity. Then I think that is something that we all can make a difference when it comes to that. And so making that connection, having people understand that relationship, going back into the neighborhoods and rekindling some of the people, because I've met a lot of people that I used to go to school with who maybe didn't finish, and said, boy, well, you know, I'm glad that somebody like you, they're back in the community now, that kind of thing, right? So making that link has been easier for us, and we understand that at the end of the day, especially as bankers, economics is what has caused many of these situations, and economics can fix and turn around the situations that the South Side is faced with.
Well, let me jump in right there, because that really is, for me, I think, one of the important questions to be answered. Across the country, but especially in Belize City, the major problems that are faced are more social. And in fact, are primarily the responsibility of central government. But as we head into an election, people are bringing these very same social concerns to the table. They want to know about how they can improve their quality of life, their housing, their employment opportunities, their ability to have their children go to school, and most importantly, to live in a safe environment. Now, these are not mandates of the of the city council. What do you say to people? How can you promise effective change in these areas when it is not your direct responsibility?
Yeah, written, of course, it's not written that we be held responsible for these issues, but certainly as a municipal body, the city, as how I look at it, Marlene, the city is not the streets, it's not the buildings, but the city is the people. And wherever you are taking taxes from people, their social ills is your responsibility. So it can't be segmented between government or municipal body. Both play a role. Of course, the government has the resource to lead these issues, but the municipal body has to play a role also in creating that environment. And the bottom line is that you have to care, right? You have to care about your people in the city. I can't be a mayor that sits in my big comfy office and down the road somebody gets shot and I don't even care. I don't even appear, go and meet the family. That to me is showing the type of people we have in our group, that we are people who really care about the people. We are about the people, and we continue to send this message that it's not only what is mandated, but we want to go beyond what is mandated.
And you know, there's a question I heard. I was listening to you in another interview where you shared something that I did not know. And if I'm wrong, please correct me. But you said what people don't know is that your name was on a ballot previously. Precisely.
And that is my story. That is my story. My story is that I wouldn't say I'm a party person per se. I'm a professional. I have been on different party lines. I grew up, actually, my first voting experience was in 1984 when I voted for Henry Young. Right? I transferred. Yeah, I transferred into Queen Square Division, voted for Dean Barrow. I saw Dean Barrow. I worshipped Dean Barrow and I looked up to Mr. Barrow, and I'm certain many residents across the city looked up to Dean Barrow, still looked up to Dean Barrow. But I felt betrayed to some extent that he came in on this platform of accountability, transparency. He rode in on the back of the teachers, and he has not lived up. He has not lived up to what I viewed him as. And so in 2008, I was actually on the UDP City Council ballot, because I felt I felt a kind of way about what was happening back then, right? What was happening back then impacted me, and so I said I wanted to be part of that change. And now this happened, and I feel that the PUP has gone through some serious soul searching. They have, even the murderer has the opportunity to change, and I feel that our party has gone through soul searching. They have listened to the people, right? They have communicated with the people and have now put forward a group that represent change. And I feel that the voters out there should give us the opportunity.
Can I ask one follow-up question, which is that, just follow from that, because I think it's very important to look at the DNA of the slate. You spoke about your past experience being on a UDP ballot, but the Pitts name is a pedigreed UDP name. We're talking about BQ Pitts. These are people who are NIPs. These are, the core of foundational UDPs. These are not play. These are the equivalents of the prices and the weights and the. What allowed you to say, listen, I'm not assuming that you come from that family, in terms of that political family, but what allowed you to say, listen, I probably think that I'm going to go blue as opposed to what my last name caused me to go?
Right. Well, my family is my family.
Good family too, I tell you that.
Yes,
definitely.
Yes. However, I was raised by my mother. So that kind of
Change the influence.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Through that theory, through the window. And she is a PUP, right? And I was raised. So if we want to make the argument that you're influenced by your family, then I would have been more influenced by her, since I was raised, by her. However, I am a free thinker, and I attach myself to a party that I think is willing to implement the kind of changes that I want to see in this society. So that is one of the reasons why I am here with the PUP.
And let me use that as a segue, because I think it is a critical point in the conversation. We seem to be in a very unique place in this country. In my opinion, and from conversations we've had with some of the young people, there is half apathy towards the political system, and there's another half, or I should just say segments, I'm not sure of the percentage, but there's the others who are still very much in line with the traditional voting system that we do in this country. My family is red, I go red. My family is blue, I go blue. And then the others, who I like to believe are the independent thinkers, the upcoming independent thinkers, just want nothing to do with the system. What is your experience when you go out on your campaigns, and do you enter homes that are viewed to be stereotypically of the red party? And what do you hear most especially from the young people, the new voters coming up, who are quite simply tired and frustrated of what they have been seeing in politics in this country?
As a politician, we try to make it a habit of not missing a house,
Yeah.
regardless of whatever the past political affiliation may have been. And our campaigners usually say, oh, don't go to this house or don't go to that house. But what we found is, especially with the millennials, they are free thinkers, they think on their own. Also, for one reason or the other, you don't know what that person's experience may have been with their area rep or past politicians. And there's a lot of cynicism that we meet on the campaign trail. A lot of people saying, you know what, I'm just tired of this process. I am fed up. I just don't want to go to vote anymore. And that is when our ears and our antennas go up, because we understand the importance of every single individual taking part in the political process. There was a time in this country when people who didn't own something couldn't vote. There was a time when women couldn't vote. So we would sit down, and at that point we take it.
Blacks couldn't vote.
To have
I was going to say.
Exactly. To have a protracted conversation with the individual as to why you can't vote, and explain to them, because if the pool of voters becomes smaller and smaller, then that means that the individuals who are making the decisions for you and I are not the ones. They don't have our best interests at heart. And after sitting down and people realizing that, you know what, we're more interested in having them be a part of the political process as opposed to supporting us, that in itself shows them that, you know what, this is a different type of politician that we have in front of you. Most of us could have continued in our professional careers and just continued and kind of just not have anything to do with politics, but that is not in our DNA.
Yeah.
And it's interesting that we've found 11 people who feel exactly that same way. So that in itself has helped the synergy of the group. But coming back to the voter, whenever we meet, especially a young voter like that, because they are the ones that will be saddled with all the bills, they are the ones that will have to live in a Belize city in the coming years. And so we make it a point to make sure that they understand, one, the importance, and two, try to encourage them to say, you know what, go out there, sift through the information, find the information for yourself, and then make an informed decision as to who you want to represent you come March 7th.
Yeah, just to add there too, as we go on the trail, that cynicism prevails everywhere, and it's a result of the lack of transparency, lack of accountability. People just get frustrated. And so within our manifesto, we felt that we had to put a component in there which shows that which represent how we feel about accountability and transparency. And that's why within our manifesto you would find the Municipal Public Accounts Committee, which reassures the voter that Oscar speaks about, that we know that we cannot be our own watchdogs. We have to have external oversight body that is there to keep us in check. And that's why we have this committee, which is a 6-member group, which we plan to form as we enter office, which will represent 4 members from the civil society, of course, and only 2 members appointed by us. They will be able to look at any contracts that we enter into, look at our financials, look at how we are spending the revenue, how we are spending their money. They will deal with the budgeting process, a lot of consultation, so they'll be able to hold us accountable. External body. In all democracies, there is always this thing that you can't be responsible for the same, for compatible functions, and that is why we feel that component within our manifesto speaks to those voters.
Now, I'm interested to know, because you are seen as the underdog going into this particular election.
Yeah.
This city has been under the leadership of the United Democratic Party for over a decade. And in fact, Mayor Bradley was extremely popular. How do you go into people's homes and tell them that now is the time to discontinue a decade-long trend of voting and give you the opportunity to be able to do something different?
Again, it's a municipal election, but it has national implications. And no voter or any homes that we go into can be immune to what is happening around them externally, what is happening in the city, what is happening at the national level. And that's why I say to the voter that the municipal election is a municipal election, of course, but with national implication, and it's a referendum. You can't look yourself in the mirror, because when you go into that booth next week, Wednesday, you will be voting to endorse what is happening at the national level. Municipal set aside, at the national level. Can you look yourself in the mirror as a voter and go in that booth and vote for a united democratic municipal body and come out back feeling good about yourself? Can you really do that? Mayor Bradley, of course, you said Mayor Bradley did well, but there are a lot of things that he did not do well, right? He's leaving a council that when he entered that office had debts of 1.6 million. It's now at 30 million and growing each day, right? We have streets that were promised to us to last for 30 years that is now being torn apart. It's broken right before our eyes. We have a council, when we look at the balance sheets, it's an insolvent council. it's the reality, right? And these are the questions the voter, when he or she enters that booth and put that X or choose who he wants to, he has to look at the national issues as well as the municipal issues also.
You know, I want to do a follow-up on that because, I mean, I think you hit the nail on the head when it comes to that. Really and truly, for the mayoral race, you're not running against, in my opinion, Dion Leslie. You're running against the ghost of Darrell Bradley.
Yes, certainly.
And my question is in relation to, when you look at, and you say that when the people go into the polls, they'll be voting on national issues. However, when you look at the campaigns seem to be in Belize City clean on both sides.
Precisely.
They seem to, even in the commercial world where the UDP aspirants are running, they're running in front of the Civic Center. They're saying, listen, we have cement streets, we have a big Civic Center, which the PUP couldn't do. But so which we still can't use, but we have all these things. And ironically, in the last general elections, the current government ran on the resume of Belize City. When they came, they said, listen, look at what we've done in Belize City, and now we're rolling it out. My question is, how do you see yourself being able to bridge the gap between, you identified some things that have not been done well, but the things that have been done well, how do you plan to grandfather those things in?
Certainly, in the area of the cement streets, right? We have a drainage issue, serious drainage issue. We have met with qualified engineers and had extensive discussions with them because we know that impacts quality of life. There's no way that your life is good when you are, as it rains, you walk in water. So drainage, we have to look at that. Again, most of the works that Darrell Bradley and Dion Leslie has embarked on has been on Main Street. Walk on Back Street, and then you will see the reality. The Main Street, City Center, roundabouts, main arteries. What about the back street? The people that live on the London bridges. This is where the poverty exists. We as a council will have to find a mix of ensuring that we allocate resources in a way that is equitable, that we meet Main Street requirements, but we meet back street requirements also.
A big part of our platform also is to make Belize City business friendly. I think what they have done, and Dion Leslie has to take some of the responsibility because he was sitting in there as part of the city council when the outgoing mayor has basically attacked businesses, raised property taxes, raised trade license fees arbitrarily. So we've sat down, we've met with the Chamber of Commerce, and they understand the plan that we have to try to bring back some of these businesses that have flown out, there's been a flight of businesses out of Belize City who have just basically closed their shops and opened a little bit north of us so that they don't have to deal with some of the high operational costs that the city has been giving, because we have Southside Hills, we have social issues, but running a city still takes money. And we must understand that the job creation, the job generation comes from entrepreneurship, from people wanting to open business and do business in Belize City. And that is a big part of what myself and Bernard can bring.
You know, and I want to touch on that because I think, and we'll get into the financials, because I know one of the things that we usually ask, and I think, again, it is trying to move us away from what used to be in politics. A lot of times we see, whether it's a council or the central government change, and you see the undoing of what has been done and a start over from scratch in my way, which only exhausts the limited resources that we have. So we know, for example, with finances, that Mayor Bradley did publish his financials for everyone to access, online as well. Is this something that you are going to continue? And what are some of the things that you know you can build upon or even make better based on what has been done from the past administration? Outgoing, I should say.
You touched the nail on the head again. That is within our manifesto that we will continue. The kind of leadership I bring, Marlene, is not a leadership of tearing down. My leadership is about uniting, rather than dividing. I think that I have the qualities that I can sit in a room with people with opposing views, and we can work out deals for city residents. That's my values that I bring to the table, and I certainly believe my team members have those same qualities also. But the undoing of things that are positive for the city, we'll build on those. We certainly will build. Mayor Bradley did streets, whether it be that it was ill-perceived, the drain should have been built first. We have to fix the drains now. That is the reality. So we will continue to build on whatever positive things that he did at the City Hall. We will continue to work with those. Yeah. We are not tearing down. We are building. I'm about uniting, not dividing.
There's one thing. There's one thing that is a pet peeve of mine, which is a policy which I'd like to hear your views on it, and if Dr. could respond. There's a very unpopular, I can say that, policy at the current Belize Sitco that requires that if you owe property taxes, that you're not given services, particularly your driver's license. What is the position of this PUP slate in relation to that policy?
All right. Well, obviously that policy was implemented again to try to stimulate a level of revenue flow for the City Council. We were trying to, going through the financials online, we could not get an idea or a sense of exactly where the collection rate is for the City Council. We want to think that it's rather on the low end. Yeah. So that policy was put in place. Some people say it's illegal, some people say it has worked. Whatever the case may be, it is something that residents have told us, listen, we want you guys to look at this thing when you get into office. So receiving their mandate, and if we get their, when we get their mandate on March 7th, that is something that we will have to look at. We understand that it's a part and parcel of the revenue flow that the city council is receiving right now. So we will have to look at it, but we will look at it from the sense where, yes, it's unpopular, but two, we have to look at what the revenue structure is like. And if it's something that can be phased out, then it will be phased out. A big part of the base of the council has eroded. We've seen where they've narrowed their revenue base, and that is something that we want to expand.
Well, let me ask about that, because ultimately, if you are elected come March 7th, we understand that you'll be working under a central government that is UDP, and it means that you may not be afforded particular leniency in being able to access funds. Whether it's coming from property taxes or whether it's from trade licenses, it's money you'll need to be able to implement the projects and the programs that you want to be able to do in the city. So how will you generate the revenue that you feel you need to be able to do what you're promising the residents?
Marlene, by expanding with revenue base. When we talk about expanding, we not talk about heightening, but rather expand. And the only way you can expand is to create a business-friendly environment where young entrepreneurs, where business people want to come and do business in your city, because you are lenient with taxes, your trade license, you are open for business, and so you begin to expand the amount of people doing business in your city rather than being tax-driven. You become business-driven, okay? And then the next way how we want to expand our revenue, obviously, we have to optimize our collections. Mayor Bradley utilizes, again, I don't know if it's legal, we have to look at it, by not allowing you to get your license if you owe property tax. If it's illegal, then we will discontinue it, but we have to get the legal opinion on it. We have to look at central government again. We have to start the discussion of more decentralization, right? We do a lot of business for the government that we do not collect revenue. The revenues are sent into the government coffers, right? We have to again talk to government and listen. How do we begin to do more revenue sharing? That's important for any city. When you go to New York City runs its city, right? It's not the federal government running New York City, but it's the city running its city. So we have to look at decentralization more revenue sharing, and expanding the base by being business friendly.
And there are other services that can be expanded on. For example, we always talk about the drivers in the city, but no one has offered defensive driving classes where someone would maybe pay for these classes. For example, maybe first-time drivers or drivers who have committed offenses. You're expanding the services offered, and you can charge for those services. Another thing that you brought up is that when we go to the pumps, when we go to the grocery store, the person behind the cash register doesn't ask us if we're PUP or UDP. Everybody pay taxes. Every single one of us pay taxes. And so if central government decides that because a municipality has a municipal body that is of the other side, and they want to hold back revenue, if they want to hold back services, they're denying some of their voters services as well. And after the municipals are over, then the focus turns to national elections. And if they want to do that to 80,000 residents in Belize City, they'll be held to pay come national elections.
You know, a very key part of what I hear from you is being able to make Belize City more business friendly. And in fact, Mayor Bradley did admit as well that the challenge of having people move out of the city limits because they pay less taxes to function was something that they were trying to get a handle on. Now, my question is, if we look at just the basic downtown area, Albert Street is not what Albert Street used to be in terms of what happens after hours. And again, it goes back to looking at the social issues and the impact that it has on the business environment. Why will a store stay open till a late hour if, one, people don't feel safe to walk the street and they don't feel safe to be open? So it is still going back to being able to address these issues of crime and violence and the sense of security. And how do you feel that you can be able to help to address this issue?
How do we feel?
That you can help to address this issue? What can a Belize City Council with your team do to change that?
Right, well that question speaks directly to one of the emphases of our manifesto, which is the social infrastructure. That has been a concern of mine, the way that Albert Street is practically a ghost town, you know, after 7 o'clock, and it's not what I was used to. As kids used to go walk on Albert Street at night. Right, it was lit up. You got your ice cream, you got your fried chicken, and you just, you know, used to hang out a little bit, you know, on Albert Street. It is not the same because of one of the primary social ills, which is crime. And I think that we continue to make a critical mistake when we limit the obligations of the city council to just the maintenance of streets and drains and garbage collection. On our campaign trail, we became aware that we need to expand those obligations just based on some of the concerns that the residents you know, continue to voice. And we are aware, even before the campaign trail, right, about some of these social ills. Which is why we have certain initiatives we want to put in place. For instance, one of the first initiatives is to offer parenting classes, since as a society we continue to make the correlation between the high crime rate and the ineffectiveness of parenting. Some parents, some mothers, some fathers sincerely lack the kind of emotional intelligence required to raise a child effectively. So we don't want to take it for granted that parents know how to parent children. So we want to offer these parenting classes to first-time parents, young parents, right? To help them to one of the ways in which we can address crime. We also see on the television, you know, young men or young people continue to fall victims of violence, right? They are gunned down on the streets. Just 2 days ago, I met Miss Karen from the Lake Independence constituency who lost 2 of her sons consecutively. And I said to her, you inspired me, and more importantly, you inspired a huge segment of our manifesto, because it's a mother like you who made me question, when I saw you on the television grieving over the loss of your son in such a short period of time, I question, you know, what support system do parents like you or do families who lose their loved ones have? And I said, since I have the opportunity to ask now, what kind of emotional support did you receive? And she said, practically none. She said that the Honorable Colonel Hyde was there for her 100% of the time, you know, but there wasn't any kind of real support system that she had. And so a part of our manifesto, one of the initiatives is that we want to offer grief therapy, you know, to families who continue to lose their loved ones to violence. We also, we are aware of the prevalence of domestic violence in our society. And so we want to be able to empower women. And one of the ways in which we want to do that is to allow them to be a part of the subcommittees of our council, right? Where they will be closer to the channel of power, where they can voice their concerns so that we can, you know, address them as best as possible.
Yeah.
Mr. Wagner? A big part of what we want to do as well is we want to use the office of the mayor and any of the other council offices to be advocates for these types of situations, because I think it has been long where things have happened in the city and we don't have anyone of substance or anyone of power speaking to or against these situations, and that has to stop. We won't run away or we won't shy away from difficult conversation, because this is what will heal our city. This is what will move our city to the other level.
And, Wagner, I mean, Mr. Wagner, maybe that's a Freudian, maybe it's a Freudian slip. But surely Belize City is the commercial center, but it's also the political power center. It has the most concentration of seats nationwide. My question is, when we look at the current political landscape, you have things that no other candidate for the PUP has had in the past 3 election cycles. You have a unified party, it appears. All of your past party leaders were there at some convention that you had. You have an endorsement from a newspaper who controls maybe 1 or 2% of the voting, or 4% of the voting population, which is significant because the margin is about 2,500 to 3,000 votes. Your party seems flush with cash, because I saw a convention which must have cost somewhere between $500,000 to put together. And the law of probability is 3 terms. You know, people are just, this is probably the best time ever. And finally, the fact that this is do or die for your party. If they lose Belize City, it is an indication that we've gone nowhere. But more so, if Belize City is won, it's an indication that general elections, the government is on the way out. My question is, do you feel pressure, added pressure, to deliver in circumstances where the voters list, for example, might not be on your side, where the VIP have moved? I think the VIP in Belmopan have bowed out of it. Do you feel added pressure to deliver in the next 5 or 6 days?
I not really feel pressure at all. I am going about my business as per norm. You see, because I look at this certainly from a party standpoint. They look at it from where you sit, that it's a serious election. But I looked at it at, listen, we have put forward a good team, a very professionally competent team. We have all the parts in place to lead this city in a new direction, to lead the city to greater things. And so we have been on the ground, we have been foot soldiers. Certainly we will be unable to match the purse of the UDP. You speak about we have a lot of money, but we don't have that lot of money. Trust me, we don't have that lot of money. But certainly business houses have been coming on board with us, and they have been putting in their work, and we feel that the group and the people behind the group, the steering committee, the campaign managers have all done their part, But to say I am feeling pressure, no. I sleep, every night I go sleep most about at midnight with all the other things I have to do. I wake up, vitalize, meet with my family, we discuss it, meet with my group, and we feel that come next week, Wednesday, we have done our part. The people has to decide now. And my mother used to always tell me that if Bernard, if you do the best you can, not even God could do the rest. And that is how I feel. That is how my team feel, that we have put in the work. We have not avoided the process. The process is the groundwork. The other side has tried to avoid this process. They would have much rather just reach the election day and bring out their chest. But we had to put in the groundwork, certainly.
And we've been moving from strength to strength. We've gone from a party who couldn't find candidates to a party where, wow, look at the slate that we have now. And so we try not to listen to the noise in the market because we understand that we have a small part of a greater dynamic. We've been trying to take care of the things that we can take care of, for example, meeting people, trying to build relationship with them, trying to build strategic relationship, and try to control that part. Everything else we know that will come with it, that all the pundits will have what they have to say, they will look at different angles. All of that we can't control. We can control what we can do, what we're offering to the people, and the message that we want to get out.
We're running out of time, but I have to ask this question, which is a follow-up to what you said there, which is there are certain things you can't control. The voters list is one of those things. But all elections are won on election day, and that is by virtue of a machinery. And in Belize City, that machinery is run by constituents. You do have a problem, though. There are several there are several constituencies in Belize City that have no placeholder. Yeah. Colette has no one, and in that constituency, you have the juggernaut of Patrick Farber, who's poised to be the next interim prime minister. You have no candidate in Queen Square that I know of. You have no candidate in Mesopotamia that I know of. There's no identified specific candidate in Pickstock, and these are major constituencies.
Sure.
How will you get over the mechanics of having no one in those significant areas and being able to still churn up a machinery that brings out voters?
By selling our team. Our team sells. This team right here sells. We have been on the ground, again, I tell you, since October. We have been in those areas by ourselves. We sell ourselves. Certainly, we would have wanted to have machinery in those key areas. We have made some makeshift machinery, certainly in those areas, but we feel that our team continues to sell itself. And with the steering committee behind us, with the party behind us, we feel that we are poised and ready to face March the 7th, next week, Wednesday.
We also have working committees in those constituents that you've mentioned. We've also brought in from other constituencies who won't have a fight come March 7th. We've brought in campaigners, we've brought in some of the field generals in those areas to work in, and to bolster these committees in these areas, because we understand, at the end of the day, it's a numbers game. Nobody other than myself and Bernard and Doc and a few of the others understand that it's a numbers game. We know the mathematical equations have to be running, so we won't run away from that, but we've had working committees in these areas as well.
Right, and I want to say that Marshall Nunes has been working, and he is a force to be reckoned with, I think,
absolutely,
in Colette, and they have
a past successful candidate.
Yes, yes, yes.
And we've done majority of our work early on the south side. As the entire team, we've been walking through these neighborhoods. We've been meeting the residents in Port Loyola. We've done the same thing in Colette. I think we've done almost every street in Port and almost every street in Colette as well.
Yeah. All right, my last question. Come March 7th, what do you view as your edge going into the election?
The freshness of this team, a sort of renewal, right? A rebirth. The team has the professional competency. Mano a mano, we far exceed our opponent when you look at our makeup of our team and the authenticity of the players on our team. Real people, right, who are about the people.
Okay. Go ahead.
And I think that we understood earlier on that we had to disabuse the residents of the notion that all politicians are the same. And we try to do that by selling ourselves, you know, our caliber. We had to, our professions. I am a professor at the university. Require us to be people of rectitude with scruples and morals. So that was, we were able to at least let them know that we are going to be different.
All right. Thank you for being here this morning.
Thanks.
All right.
Thank you for having us. We appreciate it.
We're going to go ahead and take a break, and when we come back, we'll be talking about the 70th anniversary bike race being held by UE Open Campus. That's coming up after the break. Hang on. We got to take a